My name is TZ. How you guys doing? And in this video, we are doing part 3 of the campaign park tours that we've been doing on this channel recently. And today, we are in Pennsylvania. We're on Pennsylvania, and this is Jurassic World, Pennsylvania. So, to be honest with you, this is probably one of my favorite maps in the game, as the look of it and the feel of this autumnness, it's like very almost, autumn season vibes, you know what I'm saying? And in general, it just has a very nice look to it, and I think it's almost like very scenic even. And the fact that we are next to the Pennsylvania airstrip over there as well, just a little extra thing there. But this is Pennsylvania, Jurassic World, Pennsylvania, and so let's waste no further ado, and let's get right into the tour. So the first little area I have here is kind of like the landing area, or like the place that you begin from. Like, I'm imagining if you come from the airstrip over there, all the way back in the distance there, and then you took like a tunnel, like a subway, if you will, all the way to this little bit here, and then you go up the escalator and open the doors, and you go, wow, we are in the midst of Pennsylvania right here, in a little park here. And one thing I would like to mention, and this is probably build tip number 1, is don't over detail. I think something that I actually fell trapped to, and ironically caused my PS5 to literally shut down. My game couldn't handle it, and it just shut down. The PS5 just couldn't handle it, and so my first tip for you in this park is to not over decorate. As, like, for example, this plaza area, it's a nice use of decoration, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't be opposed to this actually being here. But, like, for example, I wouldn't recommend putting planters every place that plant or paths are. Like here, for example. For example, at the scale in which this park is at, to have planters all around this entire park would be very hard, both on your console or on your PC. And so that's my first tip for you. And also, this little plaza area has these little hotels here, which then look out to these two enclosures, which we have some Dimetrodons over here from the Biosyn expansion pack. So if you don't have it, this is your, I guess, your good look at these little beauties here. But also, we do have Corythosauruses as well here, and the other side, which I had kind of split the enclosure through the invisible fence, which if you don't have the Biosyn expansion pack, then you're going to probably do this with planters. Or actually, to be honest with you could just use the concrete fencing that we have. Again, this would be pretty painstakingly long just to plant all of these across the entire enclosure, but there are benefits to having the Biosyn expansion pack. You can see here we have another enclosure. This is our Edmontosaurus enclosure. Now, another really cool thing I like doing in these type of enclosures is to add like layers of water. It's almost like it's like some of those waterfalls that exist in the world where they have like platforms worth of water, and I really love the look of them. And so I kind of replicate it a bit here. So you see the Edmontosauruses. I personally believe them. They're like very aquatic dinosaurs, so it just only makes sense to put them in water. You know, it makes sense. And also with a little bit of gyrospheres going through it as well. And then another thing I'll show you here is our Megalosaurus enclosure as well. It's fairly big, I would say. Has a couple of rocks, I think, because they actually need rocks as well. Yeah, they do. And so there you go. We also have this main like park management center, if you will. You know, there's quite a lot of stuff here. There's like a little path that then leads all the way to the main power grid. Now, for me personally, I'm a very big believer in realism in a park, and this is kind of like the best thing I would do to make a park really realistic, is to kind of add these little things here, like, you know, the paleo-medical facility, the science centers, the arrival point, but not the actual arrival point. The actual arrival point for the park goers would be around here, of course. Now, moving on to our next kind of section that I built here, because I've kind of divided this park into 3 main sections. We have section 1, section 2, and section 3, or 3A and 3B. So have a little look at these little stores I built here. So we got hot chocolate, donuts, and hats. So going on to section 2, another build tip I would highly recommend for you guys to do is to not be afraid of wasting space. Oh, not that thing. The Pyroraptors. So we have little Pyroraptors here. in this enclosure. But for example, the way I've sectioned off every part of the park, as you can see that not everything is all just connected. For example, section 1 and section 3 are very much divided. You can see this massive just line of forest that goes across the entire area. And for some people, that would probably irk them quite a lot because they just think it's a waste of space. But in reality, when you're making parks like this, especially in a map as large as Pennsylvania, I'd always recommend to use the space wisely and to not cram it with everything. So again, similar to what I said with tip number 1, and that just, you know, use the phrase less is more. You know, what on earth is going on? I swear my PS5 can handle this right now. So we have some Struthiomimuses here as well, and some Torosaurs in this enclosure, which they have little bumps on their backs, which is definitely slightly different to the Triceratops, but I think I like them as well. And so I would always recommend to just use the space around you as wisely as possible, and to not worry about, like, for example, wasting space. Like this could have all here could have just been extension to like the Troodon enclosure here, for example, which there's like at least 14 of them in here, so I could have expanded it, but I didn't. So, you know. We also can see here that we have our kind of main attraction to the park, but we'll get to the other main attraction later on in section 3, and that's the Carcharodontosaurus. Oh, okay. Our announcer guy is saying some facts here. But yeah, we have another one here, so there's 2 of them. And matter of fact, they actually need to have 2 of them in here, because if there's just one, they'll feel lonely. So they're more like a social animal, if you will. Not like a solitary predator like the T-Rex or the Giganotosaurus, which we'd see in other Jurassic Park movies. This little circle area, you know, Spinosaurus skeleton there you can see briefly. And I also added a little Jurassic Tor here, which goes across this little thing here. And let's move on to section 3, and which is this area around here. So I've kind of divided this into 2 parts. So there's section 3A, which is this bit here, and then section 3B is this little bit here, which contains around 4 enclosures. So let's actually go into B first. So in this enclosure, and I'm gonna give you another build tip here, is to add kind of depth to the enclosure. Like for example, just deepening the surface here, and to add these almost like semi rivers you could. And to be honest with you, I probably have other examples in my upcoming parks or in the other videos before that I've done, where you can just see the depth of where the water would be at, and then it goes a bit higher, and then you see, you know, surface level, and you have these Metrocanthosaurus just here chilling out here. I think I have 6 in there, I think. Yep. And I also have the Critanosaurus or Crichtonsaurus. These guys are honestly just buggers. They need so much stuff. They need ground leaf, ground fruit, and ground nuts. I'm like, bro, you do not need all that stuff. We also have the Ceratosaurus. They're just hiding in the trees barely. We got one of them there. There's also another blue one there as well. And then we have Dracorexes in here. So we have a green one here. Looks really nice. A Death Valley look, I think. A mangrove forest? No, Gambia River Basin. Okay. So you have some other dinosaurs here as well. And also, we have the Sinsauosauruses as well, which have these very nice crests. Very nice crests at that. But also I'm using the new added feature from the, I believe, the 1-year anniversary of Jurassic Evolution 2, which is these zip lines. Now, if you've never seen these before, they're here because they came recently in an update, which was on November 8th, I think. So a little recently now they've been added, and so if you ever get the chance to use these, use them because they look really cool. And I'll just show you how they're used. So you get in the ride, and here you go. So you see the Eucarythosauruses, and you can also see some of the other dinosaurs in there. I'll get to. You can also see, I think, is the Euphalocephalus in there, and this was the zip line. So you have some Euphalocephalus in here, which I really like the look of. I think these type of enclosures where you just have like water in the middle and it kind of dips down and everything around it, I like them, but to be honest with you, they're just very repetitive if you use this method all the time. So that's why I'd always recommend to, you know, vary the look of your enclosures. Like we have this kind of lake here, river, lake, river, and then so forth and so forth. Then we have I believe this is the Sauropelta. Very small enclosure. You even have invisible fencing here, so like you could like almost imagine like petting them, if you will, like a petting zoo. But I don't know if you want to pet these guys. They look pretty menacing. You got these big spikes coming out, so I don't know. And then finally, we're gonna move on to the Monolophosaurus enclosure, which I believe there's like 13 of them. Yeah, that's right, 13. Now they're not perfect, but in terms of like their area, but they just need to expand a bit, and then they'll get going, you know. But there's quite a lot in here, and I like this kind of idea where there's a lot of them in here, and this is another very nice enclosure I've personally built here. So I've like made this kind of area very deep here. It's like a valley almost, and then it kind of rises up to this point here, and oh, look at that. That's a sight to behold right there. Look at that. There's just a bunch of them all in there. I love the Molophosaurus personally. Like, I love the crest they have here, and the colors that they can get in, the skin colors they can go in as well. Another kind of response facility is based more on response, so you have like more capture teams and medical facilities, you know. Again, added little decorations, little spaces to put like crates and stuff in, so you get little small details there really. And one of the final things in this park I've gone through is this kind of plaza area. So again, like once again, don't be afraid of wasting space. You know, it's very simple, but it looks really cool. You know, a bunch of ginkgo trees here. Also, I tried to add these, like these are actually the decorational trees that you have here. But I thought to myself, I'd rather not crash my game by adding all of this across all of the grids here. So I just did one section just to kind of show what this would look like if I added this across all of the grids. But I think it would definitely be a lot cooler if I had these in. But this still looks alright, I would say. And another thing I wanted to mention while I was at it beforehand was to add concrete fences in places that you don't want the guests to see in. I kind of see this as like a way of dinosaurs having privacy. So for example, I can only imagine that the Therizinosaurus, which I have in this enclosure here, to have a little bit of privacy near the back here, so they don't always have to be looked at by the guests constantly around them 24/7. So I do this for like, I think the majority of the enclosures. You can see here as an example, here for example, they are basically everywhere. And also to kind of divide areas up. So for example, like I have the carnivores on one end and then herbivores on the other end, and I think kind of a sense of like having these walls to like not let the herbivores be provoked by the carnivores, but also have the carnivores not know that there are herbivores on this side. Well, they could probably smell them, but this is just appearances really. We have this little like nice area here really. This is where some of the jeeps actually will then go between the enclosures, so it's a little thing there as well. And finally, we have this aviary. Now, I'm not going to go gloss over too much on this because I think I did talk more about aviaries in Washington. But another thing I'd like to do in these aviaries is to add like biomes. So, you know, have this area be like the Pteranodon area, and then this side being where the Dimorphodons are. So you can see I have quite a lot of birds, and there are also some Geostormbergias as well. And yeah, I think that is it for this entire park. Look, this beauty here, yellow and blue. It's a very nice colorway, to be honest. And then we have the third one, which is a greenish look, which if you do like the look of this, then this is the Amazon rainforest, the 2022 version, and the mangrove forest. So if you do want to copy those, then feel free to do so. I think that is it for the video. Guys, if you did enjoy this video and also found it even informative, feel free to leave a like, you know. And most importantly, if you do enjoy the type of content and you want to see more content like this, then feel free to subscribe. It will help me out greatly. And most importantly, don't forget to take it easy, and peace.